This week on Behind the Pulpit, we have a very special episode for you. For the first time in Behind the Pulpit history, we have no Pastor Bob, but we do have Pastor Dave. Pastor Dave, how do you feel?
Whoa, did something happen to Pastor Bob? Or is he okay? Is there some sort of crisis or emergency?
Oh, he's doing great. Him and his daughter are in Colorado on a little vacation trip. I feel like he's going to watch the episode. So, Pastor Bob, hope Colorado's awesome. I've seen some pictures already. Looks great. We have an awesome show for you guys. A lot of stuff going on in the news. No Bob's here, so we might just talk NBA the entire time. But before we jump in, we had some international border hopping happen on our staff this weekend. Noah, I hear you went to Montreal. How was that?
It was good. I hopped the border over to Montreal. It was a lot of fun. I went there for a Formula One race. That's the track right there. Pretty cool. It's on this island in Montreal. I got a few good pictures right there. It was a ton of fun. It's my first time ever leaving the country. I was blown away by the cars there. So if anyone ever has a chance to go to a race or to Montreal, definitely recommend it.
And it was quite loud, you said.
It was very loud. I was told you need to bring earplugs, and I thought that was a little bit of overkill, and then I was there, and I was happy I brought them.
I've been to a NASCAR race, and you really don't. They're like, yeah, it's going to be loud. And it's like, oh, I've been on the street before. I've heard cars. And you don't really understand how loud it is until these cars are passing you, and you can feel it in your chest.
Yeah.
It's wild.
They're crazy.
I went down to Englishtown, New Jersey for the drag races one time. I was like, that's no joke. Okay. It's explosive.
Yeah, it sounds like a rocket ship. It's crazy.
Yeah, but they're fast.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're wild.
How long have you been into this? Has this been a new hobby? Or?
I started following it in summer of 2022, and then my entire family got into it. Yeah, so we got into it quickly, and it's a ton of fun. We all root for different people, but we all enjoy it. It's a great sport to watch.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Very cool.
There's something about the solo sports pilgrimage trip. I did it once with tennis. So there's a ATP 500 event that takes place in Washington, D.C. every year. And it was a few years ago, and there's one night that I was watching it, and it was like 8 o'clock at night. And there was a matchup of one of my favorite players, Taylor Fritz, and he was playing a legend, Andy Murray, the next day in D.C. And I'm like, I'd really like to go. Went online, looked at tickets, and at 8:30 at night, I decided to call out of work for the next day, take a vacation day, and drive down to D.C. super early. And I went just a last second spontaneous trip. I remember my now wife woke up. She's like, "Hey, how's it going?" I was like, "Oh, I'm in Maryland." What?
Wow. Spontaneously.
Yeah.
Wow.
Woo.
All right.
Sometimes I like to fly by the seat of my pants.
Yeah. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. You never know
Vacation
what's
day,
gonna
well
happen.
used.
Awesome. So there was a Montreal trip, and there's a Colorado trip. Did we want to mention that?
Yeah.
You kind of already did, but Pastor Bob out having a little fun in the Rocky Mountain High state. What's the name of that state? I don't remember. But checking out a little World Venture activity, hanging out with the family. So we're going to see him in 2 weeks. So he's going to be out for a while. He won't be here next Sunday, but we miss you, Bob, and hope you're having a fun and safe trip. And love to hear how things are going out at the World Venture headquarters. If you don't know that, our foreign mission society for the Conservative Baptists Association is World Venture. And so that's an important place. And Pastor Bob's checking out all things that are happening in the missions world there. So I hope it's going well. We want to talk about you guys, right? You guys kind of changed seats. You changed positions. You changed titles. You changed responsibilities. You changed job descriptions. What's going on? Why don't you, Noah, tell us what Tim's going to be doing, and then Tim, you tell us what Noah's going to be doing. What's the change?
So Tim's going to be the production and outreach manager. So he's going to keep doing all of his production stuff and all that good, video and AV stuff and whatnot. He's also taking on the outreach manager position as well. So it's an exciting thing that we're going to be seeing a lot new things with, a lot of outreach stuff. We were even talking this morning about some different, outreach events to try and, reach people in the community, and also evangelism centric things. Not sure if I missed anything, Tim, but yeah.
No, you pretty much got it. Really looking forward to, using the talents God has given me to work on some outreach stuff. Really, I feel like Millington, an area that I think we can grow in, is how we interact with our community around us, and how we serve those not just in our community but those like around it. So I'm really looking forward to helping Pastor Bob facilitate that. And Noah, forgive me if I got this the job title wrong. The Director of Communications and Operations.
Yes.
Close enough.
Close enough. So Noah is going to continue to do a lot of his stuff in terms of like day-to-day, like overseeing office administration stuff, but also really hone into some of the skills God has given him in the communications area. So continuing with some of the great stuff he's doing with like sermon shorts and things like that, but also start creating graphics and work on a lot of our visual promotional things that I do. I think you did a better job explaining mine than I did with yours.
Oh, you did a great job. Yeah. No, I'm excited to get into my new role too. I've really fallen in love with a lot of the digital ministry stuff, like Tim said, videos, graphics, and website and app and all that. So I'm really, really excited to be in this new role. I'm really loving it so far.
Welcome to the new normal, guys. So good to have you guys in the spots you're in. Looking forward to how the Lord uses you.
Thank you. Me too. Mm-hmm. Well, it is that time of the show where it was a pretty chaotic weekend, all things considered.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it as we dive into the news.
Well, this is big. I got a text this morning from our own Aimee Huber indicating that after much waiting and much patience, the case that she has been involved with regarding the Attorney General of New Jersey and seeking to withdraw and retract and collect data from the First Choice Women's Resource Center has now been selected to be heard by the United States Supreme Court. And so I think that this case is going to be helpful not just for First Choice, but also for other pregnancy centers that may experience, for lack of a better word, harassment from political representatives. And so the Alliance for Defending Freedom is their attorney team, and they are representing First Choice as a faith-based, pro-life women's resource center. And so that's breaking news this morning. Please continue to keep First Choice in your prayers, as this is going to be something that we want to support Aimee in and First Choice in for the cause of life and for the good of the gospel. So we will keep you posted, as I'm sure Aimee will as well. But that's pretty big news, and we're excited that the case is going to be able to be heard, and hopefully we pray that justice will be rendered. So that's a pretty big case.
Yeah.
So how many cases does the Supreme Court hear a year? Because it's pretty selective.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to get that high up, and I think there's a lot of cases that just for time purposes or for content reasons get rejected. I don't exactly know what the number is, but you can imagine something's got to be pretty important for the highest court in the land to decide we're going to personally take this up and make a judgment on this. So we're thankful. This has actually been Aimee's prayer, First Choice's prayer, the board's prayer that the decision would be made in such a way that it would be so final and so sweeping that it would put this issue to bed and to rest, not just for them, but for others as well. So although this has been like a burden for Aimee, she's also been willing to glorify God such that she's able to say with her heart, Lord, whatever you need to do to make this to make your name known and to protect life. She's willing to go to the mattresses for it. So we're here to support Aimee, and that's pretty big breaking news. So keep them in prayer.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to see how God has sustained them as well, because in the midst of all this chaos, which has been going on for a while, like a few years, they're still doing some amazing work for the Lord and for the unborn here in New Jersey. If you want to hear more about that, we have, if you listen to this show, which you obviously do because you're watching it or listening to it right now, we have another podcast on our network of Unhindered Studios podcasts called the Underground Sessions Podcast. If you know the Underground Sessions that we do here, it's a audio video form of that, where Pastor Bob will talk about different topics with different people that are prevalent in culture. and talk about them from a Christian worldview. We actually have a few episodes that we've done with Aimee and the Alliance of Defending Freedom discussing the case. I think Pastor Dave was on a few of those, so I'll put those in the show notes later. Check those out if you're not as familiar with what's going on or you want a refresher. Those episodes do a really good job of kind of discussing what's going on with those cases and how you can learn more and support.
The next news story is a pretty big international news story.
Big international
If you don't mind
news
me
story.
going there.
Yeah, let's go there.
So I was surprised. I mean, I've been hearing about this for like 2 decades, that Iran is moving toward having nuclear capabilities. They've been enriching uranium. Seems like every president since like W has been saying we need to prevent Iran from becoming a nuclear power because they are, involved in terrorist activities and supporting organizations like Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis, and to have a nuclear weapon in the hands of people who have very clearly said we seek the destruction of nations like Israel, and they're not really friendly towards the United States either, is a dangerous thought. So Friday, the turmoil began. There was a surprise attack on dozens of targets inside of Iran, specifically their nuclear sites, and I'm blown away with the precision that technology allows the military to have. Like, there was, I think, 4 nuclear scientists and leaders that were taken out in Iran, and basically they calculated things from 1,000 miles away to actually be able to take these leaders out, like going into their building, into a certain window, into their particular room where they are. That's mind-blowing to me, that kind of precision is available in modern day warfare. It's kind of frightening, actually, but that was huge news. Israel has officially decided to say enough is enough. We're not allowing Iran to get there. And what I'm reading is that Iran was really close. Like, they're saying could have been even weeks away from having nuclear capabilities. They got a lot of the sites, but there was one that's like under a mountain that they weren't able to get to with that kind of a strike. So it's not complete, but they decimated a lot of their capabilities. And then from there, man, if Israel did not have that Iron Dome, the missiles just came parading in from Iran to Israel after that, and some of them didn't get caught by the Iron Dome, and so there's been some tragedy in Israel, some non-combatant victims. And so this is a crazy story. Were you guys watching the news at all with this weekend? Or
I was following it a bit. Yeah, it's scary stuff. I've seen a couple of videos. Like, I saw a really like dystopian-esque video of, there was like something going on in Lebanon, and there was like some party or gala, and people were like looking at them going over the missiles being sent from Iran,
like their
to
fireworks
Israel.
or something.
Like their fireworks, and there's a guy playing a saxophone. It felt like something out of a movie, like the
It's
Hunger
wild.
Games or something. It was really weird to watch. And it also comes, I think, it's interesting. There's this whole thing going on with Israel and Hamas right now, and everyone's got a side, and everyone's angry at each other. And it's almost like, okay, there's 2 countries openly, I guess, at war with each other, and they're trying to destroy each other. And you have people here in the United States who are on different sides of political aisles, and they're excited about the fact that, people are shooting bombs at one another or missiles at one another because of this, that, or what they believe about a certain issue. So it's a really interesting time in our history that's going on just this weekend.
Yeah. A few things I would just mention from a Christian worldview perspective. We believe that God is sovereign over the nations, that he has given the government for the reason of protection, and that calls for humility and submission. Secondly, I think as Christians we're to pray for peace and we're to pray for justice. That includes in the Middle East. We're to pray for wisdom for leaders as well. Pray for those in authority. That's in 1 Timothy chapter 2, remember? I think, biblically speaking, let's be careful to distinguish between the Israel of the Bible, the Israel of potentially prophecy, as some see it, and the current state of Israel today. Those are 2 different things. So biblical Israel and modern-day Israel that was founded in 1948 may have some overlap, but they're definitely not identical. So I think we should be careful about that. And then finally, let's think about the persecuted church and the gospel witness in all of this. There are Christians in the crossfire. Specifically, there are a lot of Christians in Iran. There has been a growing underground church with a remarkable testimony of their faith in Jesus. The Spirit has been doing a work in Iran despite all of the oppression. And I just hope and pray that perhaps the tide is turning in Iran, and that perhaps the current regime that disallows the gospel from being spread could be potentially uprooted, and more open doors for the message of Jesus could result even in this tragedy. So we pray for that, and ultimately we long for the Prince of Peace, and we say, how long, O Lord? Because obviously any kind of death and destruction and war is grieving to the heart of our God. So big story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk about the other larger story that happened on the home front this weekend?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remind me.
There was a large network of, they were called, I believe, No King protests. And it was just all over the United States in different cities. I think close to home, I believe there was one in Morristown, New Jersey. And it was a lot of people coming together who were unhappy with the current political, I'm not going to use the word regime, because I don't think regime in American politics is necessarily the right word to go together, but the current administration is the word I was looking for. The Trump administration, unhappy with how things are going. I think this is all stemmed from the ICE raids that are happening. We talked a little bit about last week. They're happening in California mainly, and people are just unhappy with the way Trump is doing things, in their opinion. And they're letting their voices be heard. There's some violent protests, there's some unviolent protests, there's some peaceful protests, but all over the country is this one large protest. And in contrast, Trump hosted a parade that was, I've heard it was like a birthday parade. It was an Army appreciation of the Army, yeah. Army. And it wasn't very well attended, it would seem. So there's a lot of stuff going on on the home front as well. I don't know if you guys saw any of that.
I did. It's hard not to get in trouble with talking about this particular news story. I did repost something on social media last week about the issue of the protests and related issues around the immigration thing, and I thought this was pretty good. There was a local pastor who made a few key points. Point number one, politically motivated violence and rioting and looting is always wrong, no matter what, period, full stop. Number two, the undocumented immigrant situation is complex, and I think we should be careful about oversimplifying that. And just imagine you're in South America or Central America and you cannot feed your family and you're in a desperate situation. You could understand, maybe this isn't the legal way to go about things, but you can understand the reasoning why someone might, for the sake of desperation, pursue a better opportunity here in America. So I think we should have compassion for the immigrant in that way. Thirdly, I think borders are okay. The Bible talks about borders, and it's okay to enforce them, and it's okay to prioritize the people inside of your borders, and it's not an unbiblical thing to do that. Just as you would take care of your own children prior to taking care of someone else's children. Like, it's not unbiblical for a father to do that, to prioritize in that way. So the borders function similarly. And I think the other thing that was a little troubling to me was the idea that you're in our country and then you would desecrate our flag, but then wave of the flag of a different country. That didn't seem to me to be at least a wise way to get sympathy towards your perspective. If you love our country, perhaps a better way to do that would be to speak endearingly about the United States of America. So that, to me, I thought that was distasteful. At the same time, it's a complicated situation. And I will say, if you don't know what happened that started this whole LA riot thing, you should really do some homework and really look into the story, because there was a business that was very much involved with nefarious activities and trafficking, and there was an ICE raid that went in to kind of break up some behaviors there that no one would be okay with. And that was actually what really sparked the uprising in LA. It wasn't somebody going into grandma's house and taking grandma back to where she is from. It wasn't that. So maybe do a little bit of research before you form your opinion about how things should be. And as Christians, find a way to have both love for the immigrant, but also find a way to see the value of the rule of law. And I think it's challenging to hold both of those things. But as Christians, we have to hold both. Hope I didn't get into too much trouble.
I don't think you got any trouble. I was going to say, I think that there's room for, because you mentioned it last week and you mentioned it today, right? God appoints governments and he appoints government leaders, and it says in the Bible that we are supposed to obey authority, whether we necessarily agree with it or not. And I think, I think there's things that happen, when they're taking away like religious freedoms and things like that. But for the most part, we're supposed to obey authority. But there's also, that doesn't mean we can't have a heart for people who, his families might be getting separated and other things like that. So I think there is a, like, I think most issues as Christians, maybe not most, but there is like a give and take. It's not as necessarily black and white as some of the political, officials may make it seem.
Can I just make one Bible point?
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm like a Bible guy.
This is a pastor's podcast, so please feel free.
There are scriptures that you could use for this. Please don't use the whole Jesus was an immigrant thing.
Oh, I was going to ask you about this.
That is not a sound use of the scriptures. Jesus never broke immigration laws. Jesus did not immigrate. He left Nazareth in the Roman Empire to go to Egypt, also in the Roman Empire. Okay, Jesus also abided by laws. So people like to selectively edit Jesus and turn him into the spokesperson for their cause. I don't like that. Jesus is not your mascot. Jesus is Lord. So don't misuse the Bible just because you think it might fit your particular political perspective. I just think that that's an abuse of the text that we should avoid as Bible-believing Christians. So there you go. Pet peeve. I just had to say that.
I saw an interview, and I think it was maybe a little uneducated on both sides. Someone asked someone at it was a Republican rally, and there was a Democrat person who was conducting an interview. It was like, well, would you deport Jesus if he was an if he was
exactly,
here? And
exactly.
And the person was like, well, if he had proper documentation, of course not. I was like, okay.
Right. Jesus would uphold the law. Thank you, period, full stop. It's interesting. People who normally don't believe the Bible like to throw out Bible verses. Is like, wait, you don't really believe that? Okay, yeah. So it's just working for you now. I find that to be a little annoying.
The slavery thing, too, which you touched on in your sermon, I'm sure you get to later, is a very big one, too.
It is, yeah. Can we take a little bit of a lighter news story? Man, these are heavy.
I think I hear basketball.
Let's talk about it. So, since nobody watches the NHL, right, Bob? We'll go right to the NBA.
I've been checked out, man. I've been tennis, College World Series is on, so baseball, Yankees. So this is all you guys.
Caitlin Clark is back shooting threes from the logo.
That was insane. I saw that.
But let's talk about tonight's game. We're on Game 5, I think. The series is 2-2.
Game 5, 2-2.
The Pacers are performing really well as a team. I feel like there's some superstars on the Thunder that are really good. I mean, SGA is no joke. But as a team, there's a deep bench in Indiana that is coming together and passing the ball and getting the open shot, taking the extra pass. And, man, McConnell, that guy is scrappy, and he's sweating, throwing himself on the ground. There's just a solid team effort going on out of the Pacers, and I'm kind of wondering if this is going to go 7, because these two teams both want it. You can see they got grit, and it's the eye of the tiger on both sides. So tonight is Game 5. What's the prediction? What do you think?
I personally am pulling for the Pacers. I really want to see them do it. They've never had a ring. Just as a team, like you said, they're like a deep team that's working together. So I'm pulling for them. The Thunder are very good, though, so I can see it going both ways.
Totally, man. It's anybody's series.
Yeah.
Tim, you're not watching?
I have no idea what's going on. I am not a basketball fan. I admittedly, I call myself a fraudulent follower of the Knicks. I can't consider myself a fan. So I watch the Knicks when they're in the playoffs, and then they get eliminated, and then I don't pay attention to basketball anymore.
Okay.
So I apologize for
Fraud.
that. I am a fraud. I will let you. I will be the first one to say it.
Any NHL updates you want?
Yeah, I can give you the NHL updates.
Okay.
Panthers are up 3-2. Next game will be tomorrow.
Well, this could be it.
This could be it, but it ain't over till it's over.
Yeah.
And I think that the Panthers are really.
This is going to be a repeat.
It might be. It would be Panthers' second Stanley Cup in a row that they've won against the Oilers in 2 years. Panthers are really suffocating. 37-year-old Brad Marchand is playing like he's 25 again. It's really magical to watch. But you can't count out arguably the two of the three best players in the world that are on the same team in Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid. So I still think this is going 7. I think if Edmonton can figure out a way to break through this gritty, hard-nosed Florida Panthers team on Tuesday night, I think that it's going to be the building will be up for grabs in Edmonton on Friday. Friday night in Alberta, Stanley Cup Game 7. Can't beat it. That's what I'm hoping for as a neutral in this. I'm really hoping for that. But we'll see. It's been a great series. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
Very good.
Check it out.
So that is our In the News segment. Did I miss anything?
That was the In the News segment.
All right. What's next? You're driving the ship.
Yeah, I am driving the vessel today. So no Pastor Bob means no book war. That doesn't mean we won't have a book recommendation. We will hold off on giving the squirrel till Pastor Bob
like an
gets
easy
back.
win.
Like
If you forfeited.
Goes on vacation, forfeits the book. It's in his
my
contract.
chance to get ahead.
He worked it in when the elders interviewed him. Yeah. So Pastor Bob is away. So if you didn't vote, there's 7 of you who voted, which is more than last week. So appreciate that. Go back and watch last week's episode if you didn't already. Rewatch the book war, and if you didn't vote, because some of you didn't, go and vote because we would love it if you did that. I want to see like at least 15 votes on when we do this again in 2 weeks when Pastor Bob is back. But that doesn't mean we won't have a recommendation. So Pastor Bob, wow, Dave, it appears you brought a book that you would like to recommend. So
Yeah.
I would invite you to do so.
Okay, so as elders, we've been reading this one all year. We actually have spent 12 months studying the topic of church discipline. 9 Marks has this wonderful little series of tiny little short books about different topics theologically and biblically, mostly about ecclesiology and church and like practical aspects. So we've been going one chapter every month about church discipline. What is it? How do we do it? How do we do it wrong? How do we do it right? How do we prepare a church for that kind of thing? If you want to know what this is, or if you think church discipline is some some concept from the Jurassic Age or something like that nobody does anymore, that's actually not true. We are Jurassic Park. We're trying to bring back the dinosaurs here at Millington. So this is a biblical concept, and I've learned a lot from this study and just hashing it out with the elder board. If you want to know what this is, 9 Marks Ministries has a wonderful series published by Crossway. This one's by Jonathan Lehman. Church Discipline, How the Church Protects the Name of Jesus. And it's awesome. I've enjoyed it. It's nice orange color. But they've got different colors for each of the books that they do. But this is the orange one. So check it out. I think you'll enjoy it. That's my book recommendation for today. And talk to an elder and ask him, how is it? Because we've all read it together. So that's my book for today, guys.
Talk to an elder near you. So I think that's a pretty solid way to transition into the sermon. So yesterday, Pastor Dave, No, we got to talk about this. Second sermon in a row that had 4 points. Or more than 3. Bob had 5 last week, right?
Whoa.
Whew. So it's normally 3.
A lot of points.
And back-to-back weeks of more than 3 points. You guys are going off the rails.
I almost had 5. So I had to have things that rhyme with compensation, right? So it was compensation, accusation, and then I went to the third point about ordination and then vocation. Well, there could have been a 5th point about intoxication, but I decided not to.
Well, that's this week.
Yeah.
That's today.
Yeah. So we say point number 5 for today's episode. We're going to talk about intoxication, so stay tuned. You do not want to miss that part.
It's going to be intoxicating. So, Pastor Dave, why don't you, in the normal fashion, why don't you take us through your sermon from yesterday, 60 seconds, and then Noah and I will we'll ask you some questions, and then we'll get into some slides that you have, and we'll move on.
All right, 1 Timothy 5:17 to 6:2 was the segment. It's a little bit of a technical portion of 1 Timothy, and I decided to go with the theme of integrity and think about how leaders really need to take care of their lives and their character. Otherwise, like a structural beam that is load-bearing in a building, if this is compromised, then perhaps the entire church can experience massive collapse. So we talked about integrity in those 4 different areas as it relates to the money thing, as it relates to accusations that could come against a leader, as it relates to who should we ordain, and then finally, as it relates to work, how's your integrity at work? So those were the 4 areas. And then I wrapped it all together with this news story that was really wrecking me this week.
Oh, yeah.
It really bothered me. I don't know if you guys were bothered. For me, it was I need to go for a walk and think about this. So, Michael Tate had this public confession about some sexual misconduct involving homosexual behavior and abuse in that vein, forcing activity that was unwanted. And I read about that, and my mind went back to that 1995 DC Talk song, "What If I Stumble, What If I Fall." Maybe that song's too old for you guys. Please
I remember
tell me
that
you
one.
were at
You
least...
do?
Okay.
Yeah, that one, In the Light, Jesus Freak.
Okay.
I
All
remember
3 on
them.
the same album.
I remember them, but I feel like when I first started processing Christian music on the radio, at least that I can remember, Toby Mac was Toby Mac.
He had already... Okay.
Yeah.
So they were one time DC Talk, which stood for Decent Christian Talk back in the 80s.
And all 3 of them went to Liberty University.
They did?
Pretty cool.
Go
I
Flames.
did not know that.
Stayed in the dorm there.
So they had that scandal. Then K-Max 3 years ago deconstructed. He's ex-evangelical. Toby Mac doesn't have a scandal, but his son did die of an overdose. I think it was fentanyl in 2019, I think it was, which is devastating. And then Brendan Manning, who opens the song with that quote about the greatest cause of atheism today is Christians who call themselves Jesus followers and then walk out and deny him by their lifestyle. And Brendan Manning struggled with alcoholism. So I was just thinking about that song. What if I stumble? What if I fall? This isn't a warning anymore. This is this really happened. And you guys actually lived this thing out. And it just made me really think about that hard. And how do we deal with somebody who's fallen? And it made me think a lot about the importance of integrity in the public eye. And then where does grace come in? And what's the role of truth and confrontation before we get to the grace and mercy side? And how do these things fit together? Here's a question for you guys that I was thinking about. And we were discussing this at my Father's Day dinner yesterday. So when you have a Christian superstar, like a rock star, there's no category in the New Testament for that. There's no here's the criteria for a Christian rock star. They should be above reproach. That's not in here.
Yeah.
Nor is there really criteria for any kind of Christian superstar, whether you're let's say a Christian athlete in the public eye, which that happens, or let's say if you're maybe just a traveling speaker, or maybe you're just a Hollywood star who's a Christian. There is no biblical framework around that, which is actually worth thinking about. So here's people that have an impact. They have a ministry. They're actually preaching the gospel. They're sharing the word. They're obviously doing ministry for Christ.
Yeah.
But they're not really in the blueprint. So who holds them accountable, and how come they got to be in that influential position? And then what happens if they don't live up to their character standards? And how do we police that? And I was thinking, oh man, this is an issue. This is a problem. It's not really totally clear. It's a little bit like the Wild Wild West. The Bible doesn't actually call for leaders to be like that. There is no real thing in the blueprint and how to handle it. So I thought, that's an interesting thing.
Yeah, no, what do you think?
Yeah, that is a good question because, the Apostle Paul is the one that's writing this, letter to Timothy. So he's giving Timothy these outlines for how the elder should be, above reproach, not, slave to drunkenness, etc. So he's writing all these things about, how the elders should operate, and then also giving Timothy some guidelines for himself. But Paul never says anything about him. Paul never said, because Paul is kind of somewhat of a rock star. He went around, planted several churches. We still read his stuff today. Apart from Jesus, he's probably the most well-known person in the Christian faith. So, where are Paul's guidelines for him? Like if he were to have had a failure, where are his guidelines? And I don't know if I necessarily have a thorough answer for that, but maybe that kind of adds to the dialogue of, what was Paul's, guideline for himself as a, spiritual rock star in the first century.
Okay, you texted me a picture Saturday or Friday with the Dodgers pitcher guy.
Yeah. We
What
forgot
was
about
it
that.
again?
Yeah. So quickly back to in the news. So the Los Angeles Dodgers had their Pride Night recently, and so
Clayton Kershaw.
Yeah, Clayton Kershaw. One of the ways that they celebrated it. So imagine this is a baseball hat or a logo, and instead of like the normal white in the inside of the Dodgers logo, it was the rainbow colors. And so Clayton Kershaw, who is a Christian, he just wrote small in silver Sharpie on his hat next to the logo, Genesis 9:6-12, I believe.
Wherever the rainbow
thing is. And that was it. He just did that, and it was caught on camera and stuff.
That was a creative way to like honor his faith, but at the same time not really get in trouble with the team. I thought that was a good witness. But okay, there's an example of a Christian in the spotlight, and this happens sometimes with athletes or musicians. So I mean, life can be hard. They can have a lot of stress and pressure, and they can stumble.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of an issue that we have to think through. What happens if they do, and how do we handle that? I thought, man.
Yeah, I think there's different levels of spotlights, right? So I think it even starts. I heard someone tell me once that some of the most spiritual warfare you may ever face in your life is like right after you get baptized, because boom, there's a spotlight. It's a public confession of your faith. People know who you are. They know what you're about. So that's going to be attacked, right? I'm sure, being in ministry to a degree, like there's a spotlight, like someone like Noah and I who are on staff at a church, there's different things that, and then it goes up. So then it's like you, Pastor Bob, and Pastor Dave, right? Who, I'm sure it's like the spotlight gets bigger and bigger. And I would say probably the biggest Christian superstar right now is probably Forrest Frank. If I had to like name one, and I'm sure he's probably getting attacked in different ways, and people are trying, there's forces trying to get him to mess up, and because it brings people down, because that the bigger the person, the bigger the fall.
High value target.
Yeah, people are like, oh, look at this guy was such
they're like the guy in Iran that hey, let's take him out.
Yeah, if he's not doing this anymore, then why should I? Kind of a thing. Right. And I think it's important, like whether you're just a person who lives in Basking Ridge and is not really in the limelight, or you're a pastor at a big church, or you're some sort of Christian celebrity. I think it's still important to keep the same guidelines that, in terms of like holding yourself, like talk about like the putting on the armor of God every day, talking about having people in community around you to hold you accountable, to make sure that you're staying on track, and you're still in you're still in the Word, and you're still spending time with God, and you're doing all that. So I think different spotlights are hotter than others and can be more difficult.
Yeah, but
I still think we have an outline here of how we can avoid that. I was just reading in Corinthians today about there's all sorts of temptations, but none of them are new, and we're not going to be tempted more than we can handle. God gives us a way to escape that.
Right.
And it's if a lot of times we need to put people around us who help us to do that.
Yeah, that's true. Speaking of your uncle Jack, which I give a shout out to Jack Dorita in the message yesterday, if you didn't see that, which is Noah's uncle. I don't know how often you guys get to see him in North Carolina. It's probably not very often, right? But great guy, big role in my life. Like, amazing guy. We call him the Jack of all trades. He's the kind of like pastor who like can sing, he can preach, he can like do it all. So anyway, when I first actually listened to him and actually enrolled in Bible college and pursued ministry, I said to him, it was just a random like Sunday morning conversation. I'm like, Pastor Dorita, it's just really cool to be like in the will of God again. And I don't know, my life was like coming together. I was like, yeah, I should go to this college and I should do this. And I feel like I was getting some traction on what God wanted me to do. And I was excited about it because there was like doors opening, and I was like figuring out a way to pay for this. And it was like, okay, the Lord wants us to line up. So I said to him, Pastor Rita, it's really cool to be back in the will of God. And you know what he said? He goes, yeah, until you start getting it from the other side. That was like, you want to talk about a wet blanket. That was like him just giving me a little smelling salts about the fact that you are going to get attacked when you step into the battle. It's a war. It's not peacetime. So got to watch out for that. Yeah. So that was the integrity thing. There was this one verse about alcohol I didn't want to talk about, but if you guys want to talk about other things, we can.
Yes.
You want to go for it?
Let's go for it.
Okay, so there's this one throwaway parenthetical line about Timothy, drink a little wine for your stomach ailment instead of water. And people use that verse to kind of have liberty on a lot of different things that the Bible actually isn't teaching. So I said, all right, let me take a little time and just discuss what it is. And it probably has to do with ancient water sources not being pure and Timothy's missionary travels and him having issues drinking the water. And wine had a way of not being so impure. So Paul recommended that as opposed to water, or maybe wine mixed with water. So that was like a medicinal use of alcohol. And then I just talked a little bit about like Christians and alcohol, which is an integrity issue. So I wanted to just take a couple minutes and you guys can just like raise your hand or dive in or whatever when you want to talk about it. But what does the Bible actually say about alcohol? People are very divided on this. I've heard pastors teach on it and they can sometimes skew. You have some pastors that will teach on it in a very liberal way, and it's like, hey, there's no problems without sort of acknowledging like the big addiction problem we have in our country. But then you have other pastors that teach on it in a very legalistic, judgmental way, and they make the Bible restrictive in a way that it's actually not, and they bring their own tradition to the text, and that's sometimes called teetotaling, where you just teach abstinence. Totally, and I don't actually think that that's fair. So the Bible actually... Let's just let the Bible speak. Just forget about your tradition. Forget about like what you think. Like, what does the Bible actually say about alcohol? So I put together some passages, some positive passages and some negative passages, and I just want to just read a few of them, and maybe we can talk about it. Okay, yeah. So let's start with the positive, which should make everybody nervous. Okay, so the first one we'll start with is, let's go Old Testament. So in Deuteronomy, Moses says this: "You shall truly tithe all of the increase of your grain that the field produces year by year, and you shall eat before the Lord your God in the place where he chooses to make his name abide, the tithe of your grain and your new wine and your oil of the firstborn of your herds and your flocks, that you may learn to fear the Lord your God always. But," listen to this, "if the journey's too hard for you, so that you're not able to carry the tithe, or if the place where the Lord your God chooses to put his name is too far from you, when the Lord God has blessed you, then you shall exchange it for money. Take the money in your hand and go to the place which the Lord your God chooses, and you shall spend that money for whatever your heart desires, for oxen or sheep, for wine or similar drink, for whatever your heart desires. You shall eat there before the Lord your God, and you shall rejoice, you and your household." Isn't that crazy? So, like, if you can't make it to the temple and you can't go, like, worship there, you should take your stuff and, like, throw a party and actually celebrate with this joyous feast in the presence of the Lord with wine. And there it's meant to be a joyful thing, a source of blessing. Similar drink, that's something we don't exactly know what that is. There's wine and similar drinks, some sort of intoxicating drink. Not to get drunk, that wasn't the goal, but it was saying this is a chance to enjoy God's good creation. So Deuteronomy. Interesting, right?
Yeah.
That verse is fascinating. Okay, number 2.
2.
Genesis 14. "Then Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was the priest of God Most High." The word for wine there is yayin, which was absolutely fermented grape juice. Some people say it was not really real wine. No, the word doesn't mean that. It meant wine. Okay, Psalm 104 says, "And wine that makes glad the heart of man, oil to make his face shine, and bread which strengthens man's heart." Again, that's the word yayin. Again, the context clearly indicates that's a good thing. Not only is wine good, but... Could you put that back up there for a second, Hannah?
Yeah.
actually, notice he's talking about that which makes the heart glad. So it's the effect of the wine there, not just the taste. So it's like, this is here for your enjoyment. Like, have a glass of wine. This will make your heart glad.
So, question about that. So I do believe, yes, I think you can feel the effects of alcohol without getting drunk. Are they talking about how wine tastes? Because I know for me, I'm someone who enjoys the taste of wine. I use it in cooking all the time, and I enjoy pairing it with different meals. Is this talking about like the taste of it, or is it talking about the actual like effects without it being taken too far?
I think it's talking about the effect of it, that it has, a glass of wine can have a calming, subduing effect on a person in a way that can be a blessing from God. I think that's what it's saying, which is interesting. Not talking about getting buzzed. I'm not talking about tipsy. I'm just talking about the effect of a glass of wine that a person experiences. Okay, the next one's Isaiah 25. This is eschatological, but in the millennial kingdom, probably. It says, "And in this mountain the Lord of hosts will make for all people a feast of choice pieces." I don't know what kind of food that is, but it's good, man, whatever it is. "A feast of wines on the lees, of fat things full of marrow, of well-refined wines on the lees." So this is aged wine. It's supposed to be a source of great hope in the future, that there will be this banquet, this feast, where there will be wine there. Okay, so those are some Old Testament things. Ready to go New Testament?
Let's do it.
Guess which passage is the most famous New Testament example of alcohol? Come on.
Oh, water and no wine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so here's what happens in John chapter 2. There's a wedding at Cana, and people say this is non-alcoholic. That's totally not true. So here's what happens in John 2. It says, "When the master of the feast had tasted the water that was made wine and did not know where it came from, but the servants who had drawn the water knew, the master of the feast called the bridegroom, and he said to him, 'Every man at the beginning sets out the good wine, and when the guests have well drunk, then the inferior. You have kept the good wine until now.'" So the well drunk word means that they are enjoying the effect of wine, and the good stuff, whatever that means, would be even superior to what they started with. So now some people say, well, this means Jesus was okay with drunkenness. That's not true. But it does imply that Jesus's actions show that there isn't a distinct prohibition against wine in the Bible. You can't really make that case. I think this is clearly teaching that he's okay with it in certain contexts, right? So that's the most famous New Testament one. Can we go to the negative passages now? All right, so there's some prohibitions. All right, so here's the thing. Okay, let's take that down for a second, Hannah. If you're someone who struggles with alcohol, you need to listen to the negative ones. Okay, but if you're somebody who's legalistic and judgmental and you like to put your convictions onto other people, you should listen to the positive ones. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you should listen to the ones that are that are uncomfortable for you. Like, that's a good practice, right? So here's the negative ones. Okay, the first one's in Proverbs 20. "Wine is a mocker, strong drink is a brawler, and whoever is led astray by it is not wise." So it mocks, it brawls, don't be led astray by it. Pretty negative. We all know that somebody who drinks can sometimes get a little macho. They can start fights. They can, be tough guy, right? I think that used to happen in the Old Testament as well. There was that issue. This is my favorite one. Okay, this one's so rich. All right, Proverbs 23. "Who has woe? Who has sorrow? Who has contentions? Who has complaints? Who has wounds without cause? Who has redness of eyes? Those who linger long at the wine, those who go in search of mixed wine. Do not look on the wine when it is red, when it sparkles in the cup, when it swirls around smoothly." Let me pause right there before verse 32. So it's clearly a drunkard. Like some people actually get hurt when they're drunk and they don't realize that they got hurt. Like you get bruises and you don't know where the bruises came from, or you have like red eyes. Sometimes people you can tell in their eyes that they drink a lot of alcohol. Like, I'm sorry, I love Michael Jordan, but lately his eyes are so yellow. I just wonder what's going on here, man. Okay, so verse 32, it says, "At the last it bites like a serpent and it stings like a viper. Your eyes will see strange things and your heart will utter perverse things." Verse 34. Tim, could you read the rest? I got a cough.
Absolutely. Yes. You will be like the one who lies down in the midst of the sea, or like the one who lies at the top of the mast, saying, "They have struck me, but I was not hurt. They have beaten me, but I did not feel it. When shall I wake, that I may seek another drink?"
So like seasick, like you're on a boat and you can't like you're stumbling around because the waves are like tossing. You ever see somebody who's drunk and they can't walk a straight line? They're like kind of like swaying back and forth, right? So look at this verse. Like, a person doesn't feel pain. They struck you, but it didn't hurt you. So this much alcohol is causing you to actually not be able to feel pain. They are saying sinful stuff, right? They're drunk. They're lacking balance when they're walking. They're drunk. They're craving alcohol in the morning when I wake, right? Like, if you want alcohol first thing in the morning, you have a problem, right? So this verse is talking about that 3,000 years ago. So those are some Old Testament cautions. And then there's a New Testament caution that I read yesterday. I'll just reread it. It's from Ephesians 5, but I'm going to throw in 17 as well. Noah, could you read this for us?
I'll try. There's a camera right in my line of sight, but I'll try my best. "Therefore, do not be unwise, but understand what the will of the Lord is. And do not be drunk with wine, in which is dissipation, but be filled with the Spirit."
Okay, so according to this verse, guys, how often am I allowed to be drunk with wine?
Never.
Right.
0.
Right? I think it's like a clear prohibition. I mean, how often should I be filled with the Spirit?
All the time.
All the time, right? So it's
the
like
time.
Yes. So I think drunkenness isn't something that the Bible allows. It's a sin that messes up your walk with God. And so we need to be cautious of that. This verse is actually a little bit more sobering than that one, no pun intended. So Galatians 5 has a list of behaviors that are big problems, including envy, murders, drunkenness, revelries, and the like, of which I tell you beforehand, just as I told you in the time past, that those who practice such things will not inherit the kingdom of God. So I cannot even overstate this warning enough. It's talking about people who engage in a certain warning, and they're actually not going to be inheriting the kingdom as a result of their behavior. That's a pretty significant warning in the New Testament, to be characterized by that. So that would mean you're not going to heaven, which is, that's a pretty big deal. And then 1 Timothy 3. We've already talked about this in the series, but again, an elder should be not given to wine or not given to drunkenness. So this is for like a leader, a spiritual leader. That's going to be dangerous if you're given to drunkenness, because you will lack self-control. I think that's true of spiritual leadership. Honestly, I think that's true of leadership in general. I would feel a little nervous if there was like even a political leader who had a problem with alcohol, who was making major decisions. Like, I don't know, if President Trump was like, drinking and like to throw him back, and he's got the ability to make major decisions around nuclear codes and stuff like that. I don't want to really put those decisions in the hands of somebody who actually doesn't know how to, keep themselves sober. I think just generally leadership should probably think about that, because you make big decisions. So that's the drunken thing. But there's the other thing of like caring for your brother who may struggle with this, even though you don't. So like, let's say it's not a problem for you and you can have one glass and you're good, but you got a friend who cannot, and one is not enough and they cannot stop that. So how do you like love them? So Romans 14. Tim, you want to take this one?
Yep. "It is good neither to eat meat nor drink wine, nor do anything by which your brother stumbles or is offended or is made weak."
So what do you guys think of that one?
I guess, let me know if this is too black and white. If you're with someone who struggles with something, you shouldn't be doing it around them, because you don't want to drive them into temptation or into a possibility of stumbling.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty clear. I mean, maybe it's a little black and white, but I think you should have a conversation with your friend. Like, hey, how's this going for you? Is this a problem that I'm doing this? I think you should care about them in that way. And it's usually a problem. Because it's like, okay, well, Tim can have one, so I guess I can have 5. No. But, your one may somehow in their mind construe that reality in a weird way, like justifies it. And what's clear is we need to love our brother. And so that's my verses. I thought it would be good just to share those, and I'll just kind of wrap it up with a few conclusions, and then we can move on. So I think definitely it's a liberty that's allowed in the Christian life. I think we should probably acknowledge that the Scripture grants that liberty to even Christians. It's a matter of Christian freedom, and it would be wrong to rob people of that. So to have a pastor preach a message and say it's never okay to enjoy an alcoholic beverage would be, I think, a misuse of the Bible. At the same time, there's a lot of reasons not to drink, and I think we can be aware of those. And the second thing I would say is, if you struggle with alcohol, you're probably not the right person to know when it's too much. You should probably lean on other people to help you know, is this too much? Because by its very definition, you have trouble knowing if it's too much. So if you're the one with your own impaired judgment who are making that decision, that's probably not the wisest way to relate to that, right? So if you say, I'm just going to know I'm drunk, you'll probably be the last one to know. If you've had too much to drink, other people will probably tell you in advance. So just be aware that the community around you can be mirrors and can help you with that. And I think just watch your own compromising on that issue. So it can be a problem, and it can also be a stumbling block to others. And just take a balanced approach to the Bible and alcohol. So there you go. Couple verses. Any other thoughts before I move on to my next segment? Or
No, that was good. I mean, for someone who went to, it was a Catholic school, but it really wasn't. Went to a school and, had a little too much fun with the stuff when I was there. But also someone who really enjoys, I really enjoyed a good wine. I really like beer and different spirits, but also, I'm a bigger dude, and, it's interesting because it's difficult, because I obviously I don't want to get drunk, but I think sometimes I can fall into okay, even though I'm not drunk, I've probably drank too much. Or it's like, even though I'm not really feeling the effects, and it's just like, I've appreciated that sermon because it's kind of like, even though, there's a push and pull here that, is worth examining. So those are good verses to be aware of.
Worth taking a look at. Yeah. So good. Any other questions or thoughts on the 1 Timothy 5 sermon from you guys? Anything stick out there that we wanted to
I don't know. What do you
dive
think?
deeper into?
Zoom in the scriptures here. I really liked it. It was funny. Because like I mentioned, I was reading Corinthians this morning, and the whole muzzle and ox thing showed up there again. I was like, oh, that's funny.
Yeah, he quotes it twice.
Right in 1 Corinthians 10.
Right. Yeah, it's like one of his favorite verses to quote about.
Yeah.
Make sure people are fairly compensated. So, I think that's a good principle. Something we should probably look at.
Yeah. How does it feel to preach a sermon like that?
Awkward.
Yeah.
It was so weird.
Let's take a look through the window here of let's go behind the pulpit.
There's some times where you're called to teach the Bible, but it's so directly related to your own life that it feels like, should I be the person explaining this verse? Is there anybody else that should be? So I don't know. You're called to be a pastor teacher, so you just teach the text, right? So I found it to be, I don't know. I hope that I didn't come across in any way that was look like I was trying to advocate for my own personal self, as opposed to privileging the text and just showing the congregation, here's what the Word of God says. I just don't want to do that. So I don't know. Did you guys feel like I struck the balance okay, or did it feel?
Yeah, definitely. I really thought it was interesting, the Greek word that meant $500,000. That's a clever one. No, I know for me there was never personally a part of it that
Yeah.
I always thought it was like, oh, he's grandstanding for himself here. So
Yeah.
no, enough.
I
Yeah,
made a
different
joke
opinion.
in the sermon. If you guys didn't see it, the word double honor, I was like, that mean in the Greek, that means $500,000. No, it doesn't mean that. But the word double honor is kind of strange. So there is different views on that. I did take a view. Some people say the double honor means the guy's working a regular job and he's also working as a pastor. So you should pay him for both those jobs. A second view is the one that I took, that like lay elders get honor, but then an elder who's a pastor teacher as well gets double honor because they also get remuneration as well. I think that's probably the right way to take that. So
Great.
good to think about.
Yeah. No, anything else from the sermon?
No, nothing else from me.
All right.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Pastor Dave, thank you very much. We'll look forward to seeing you on Sunday. Pastor Dave, you want to give a little
Sure.
teaser for the sermon on Sunday?
Yeah. How many of you guys have been watching what's been going on in Ukraine? And the whole Russia-Ukraine war has been developing, and it's been actually very eventful recently. We're going to have our own John White, a missionary, a world partner, who's from Ukraine, who's going to be actually giving the word this Sunday, and he's going to fit into the Divine Blueprint series, but he's going to talk about that specifically from a missionary perspective and give us a little update on what's going on over there and what he's been through. And so we're looking forward to hosting him. Whenever missionaries come, for me, guys, I feel like let's roll out the red carpet. This is like the real royalty.
See if we can get him on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's a wonderful teacher. So we're looking forward to having John with us next Sunday. So don't miss it. It's gonna be a
Maybe
good
next week I'm behind the pulpit too. We'll see if we can get him on.
one. We'll see. We'll see.
Well, thank you, Pastor Dave. It is now the time of the show that we like to call the Theology Sprint, where there it is. There it
Hey.
is. No Pastor Bob today.
I
but
forgot about that graphic.
Yeah.
We were talking about how angry I look here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what it is? I don't know if you're angry. I think you just take these theologies so seriously.
That's right.
It's no time.
That's right.
It's no time to joke around.
He's
Thank
sprinting
you.
in that picture.
You're welcome. Yeah. So Noah, you will be keeping the responsibility of doing the theology sprint. So I believe Noah has a question for you.
Oh.
Yes, and it's inspired by our discussion today from 1 Timothy. So here's the question. In 1 Timothy, we talked about how it is okay to drink alcohol in moderation. Is it also permissible to smoke in moderation, such as a cigarette or weed or a cigar?
Oh, okay. You know, I think back in the day, there were Christians who thought smoking was okay. I don't think we were totally aware of the health effects back then, but there was a seminary professor at Dallas named J. Vernon McGee who used to smoke a pipe. The great Charles Spurgeon, the Baptist preacher with the golden tongue, used to smoke cigars, and people would complain about the fact that he smoked so many cigars. And he had a funny line about that. Somebody came to him and said, I think that you are smoking too much with that cigar. And he goes, well, I will quit when it becomes excessive. And the other person says, well, how will you know when it's excessive? And he said, well, when I'm smoking two at the same time. So that was Charles Spurgeon. So back then, I don't think really like lung cancer and the kind of health effects that we really know about from cigarettes and cigars were well known. That's kind of new information. It's crazy to me that like we used to have a smoking section in the back of the airplane, and that
crazy.
wasn't that long ago. So I think the Bible would teach us that our physical health is a priority and that we have to actually do things to care for our physical health. I think 1 Timothy 5 actually would teach that we should take care of our bodies because they're temples of the Holy Spirit. And this is the only power pack that God has given me, and I got to take good care of this battery that I have in my physical body. However, I don't think we want to make a blanket statement here. There is a paper that the elders put together on recreational marijuana, which would discourage its use for that purpose. They did not take a position on medicinal marijuana, and that's a decision I think you should make between you and your own doctor. There is medicinal uses for substances in the Bible, and I think we should allow for like end of life care when somebody is really suffering and the pain is just unbearable. You know, I think there's actually a verse in the book of Proverbs that says, "Give wine to those who are perishing, and it's a mercy in order to help them dull and numb the pain that comes through the end of life types of circumstances. So I think there's a place, but I think that should be reserved between you and your physician. But generally speaking, I think smoking is not something that the Christian should be encouraged to do. I don't know if that answers your whole question, but that's my shot at it. So
That answers it.
okay.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Okay.
So I had a conversation with somebody recently, and we were talking basically about this. What would you say? So the weed is now, it's not just like smoking. You can get it. They make it in carbonated beverages now. You can get it at a liquor store. You can get it in like gummy form. You can get it in, I'm sure, do they still bake it into brownies? I don't know.
Don't know.
So the question that came up was, okay, and I'll ask you this personally, Pastor Dave, on how you would answer this. So what would you say to someone who's like, okay, hanging out with, hanging out with some friends at a campfire, and people are having a beer or two, nothing crazy, no one's getting drunk, just enjoying a beer. What would you say to someone who also, it's like, okay, how is it different if if someone has like a blunt or someone has like one of those THC drinks, and you're not getting like super stoned, but you're just enjoying it, and kind of like how that one verse said. I'm sure this is different because that spoke about wine, but like enjoying like the subtle effects of it. What would you say?
Like having a cigar on a golf course.
Yeah, something like that. How would you say that's different?
The elders deliberated on that, and we didn't find any credibility to the fact that someone can just ingest marijuana just for the purposes of enjoyment like that. Like the only purpose is intoxication. So your goal is to actually not be sober when you are taking marijuana. So because of that, we saw the overarching principle of drunkenness to like apply to marijuana in that way. So we didn't see a proper use for that as a Christian. As far as a cigar, I would just echo what I said about the lung issue and the health detriments and the respiratory problems that could occur with that. I don't want to be too legalistic about that. I mean, if somebody has a new baby or something and they get gifted a cigar, I don't think we need to be so black and white like about that kind of thing. But I think generally speaking, we would want to be very careful about taking into our bodies things that are harmful. It is not natural for the human body to actually inhale smoke. That is not the way God designed our lungs to operate. So yes, these substances might be growing out of the ground and coming from nature, but we're not supposed to light them on fire and then wrap up and then inhale the smoke into our lungs. That's not how our lungs are supposed to be treated. So I would just caution you from a health perspective on that. So help? Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
If you'd like to learn more about the Elders paper on recreational marijuana, we can make that available to you. We'd be happy to share that and all of the other verses about being sober-minded and the things that went into crafting our position on that. We'd be glad to share that with you. So let us know.
Well, we are about to park the great Behind the Pulpit booze cruise. But before we do that, there are some things that are happening in the life of our church. First of all, before we do this, intern Hannah has been behind the producer desk for us and has been doing a wonderful job. Hannah, thank you so much for doing this. It was a bit of a curveball. She texted me last night, I'm available. And I saw it this morning on my way in. I was like, oh, this could work. So she was willing to come in and help us out. Great work. So, Hannah, why don't you rattle some stuff off for us and we'll take it through.
Should we each take one?
Yeah, I think there's more. There's two that you'll do.
Oh, okay.
There's one that I can do because I'm doing it, and then we'll have Pastor Dave do some stuff. So we'll see what the first one is. This is not any of the ones that I was thinking of. So,
curveball.
Okay, so there is you did the announcements yesterday. You do it.
Oh yes. So we have a promotion for our fathers. So yesterday was Father's Day, Sunday, and so as a blessing we wanted to give to all the fathers at NBC, we have Pastor Bob and Pastor Dave's new book called We Need a King After God's Heart. It's based on their sermon series from a few years ago on the books of 1st and 2nd Samuel. So if you scan that QR code if you're watching us on YouTube, or if you check out the link that's going to be in our description, you can get access to that free ebook, and it's available until June 17th.
So I will do my best to get this episode up as soon as possible so that there are a few hours left. So if you're watching this right now and it's still the 17th, go get it. Go take advantage of it.
Time is ticking, though.
Time is ticking. Yeah, I'm going to bolt out of here as soon as this episode's over and make sure we get this video up. Might go 1080p for this one just to get this up a little earlier. These are usually 4K. We might go 1080 for this one.
Can't even scan the QR code with 1080.
All right, what do we have next, Hannah? Here you go, Noah. There's another one for you.
All right, so we have a very exciting young adult event coming up. It's going to be on Sunday, June 29th at 6 p.m. It's going to be a barbecue. So this is just for all.
Those look good, man. What kind of seasoning is that?
Noah and I were looking at that.
That's some pretty cool seasoning.
Look at the Maillard on that burger. That's incredible.
So we're going to have a barbecue. So this is for any young adult. It's a very, laid back event. We're going to, grill some stuff. We're going to hang out. We're going to spend some time together. We might do a little bit of worship. John Batone said he might bring his guitar. Even if you're not a young adult listening to this podcast, if you know any young adults, please spread the word. We're looking just to connect all the young adults here at NBC. We, really want people to feel plugged in.
What's the age range?
Age range, I think, is on our website says like 18 to 30. I think that's the new young adult age range.
It used to be 18 until, this is if you feel like a young adult. I remember that was described as that. So it's good that there's some sort of
I identify as a young adult.
There's there's an age range now.
And then we also have a second young adult announcement, which is for our young adults small group. So we have a bi-weekly young adult small group, and it meets on Sundays. It's not always the same Sunday, but the next one is going to be on Sunday, June 22nd, which is this upcoming Sunday, right after the second service in YFMB room 202. We're studying spiritual warfare. There's this Jonathan Pecluda spiritual warfare series on Right Now Media we've been doing. It's been really cool. I actually am one of the members in this group, and it's a lot of fun. We just have a discussion. We get to hang out a little bit. And if you're a young adult, come out to this Sunday, June 22nd, after the second service, and hope you can make it.
Great. Next, Pastor Dave.
Hey, every summer we actually stay late after the second service just to have lunch. And we do this not once, not twice, but 3 times. So you need to come. It's a chance to enjoy some food, but mostly get to know somebody sitting next to you, ask a few questions, meet a friend, and just hang around. It's called Summer Connections, and we hope to see you there. We got it coming up. Make sure that you make that a priority. We would love to get to know you a little bit, and it's a chance for you to feel a little bit more like you belong here at NBC. So can't wait. It's going to be good.
I hear you don't actually qualify as a real Baptist if you don't stay after church and have a meal with people at least once.
I think that's not accurate. If you want to be a member, that's part of the thing.
It should be part of the, have you stayed after and had a meal at least once?
Jesus is Lord. Yep. Okay. Baptism by immersion. All right. Potlucks. You good? All right. You're one of us.
It's in the Venture Church. See their website, Venture Church. It's in there. I believe there's one more. Great. I'll tackle this one. Colson Fellows program. There's still time to sign up. This is something I'm really, really excited about. For those of you who don't know, the Colson Fellows program it's a program where you get educated over 9 months in just Christian worldview. How should we be looking? How should we view the world as a Christian? I'm looking forward to some 9 weeks reading some books, academic based. I think we meet once a month in these cohorts where we get to talk about the readings and talk about different things. We get to attend some cool online seminars. And it appears to give you some pretty cool connections too. I know a lot of the work that Pastor Bob has done with things like Underground Sessions and the Contend Conference and the people he's been able to bring in is because of his connections with the Colson Fellows program. So I believe we have 7 people signed up right now. This is something we're definitely going to be doing past this year, if this is still something you're thinking about. But if this is something you really want to look at, if you have a heart to want to be able to talk to people about your faith, why you believe what you believe, and how we should be viewing things, this is the program for you. I'm really looking forward to that.
Very good.
I think end of show. All right. So thank you for watching Behind the Pulpit. One pastor, no problem.
Okay.
You did it.
Wow. Thank you guys for your help.
Absolutely.
That was tough.
You did such a good job, man.
Thanks, man.
It was awesome.
All right.
Make sure, if you were watching, go vote on last week's book war. Check out those Underground Sessions podcasts. Go look at the position papers on recreational marijuana. Anything else? Any closing thoughts, Noah?
No?
No? Pastor Dave, take us out.
Thank you for riding us home, Tim. Great job leading the show. Good to be with you guys.
Absolutely.
Have a great day, guys.
See you next week.